Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Sergio Gutierrez. Gutierrez was fatally stabbed on Saturday, September 20th, 2014 in the 3700 block of Oak Lawn Lane in Pico Rivera, according to LA County coroner records. Sergio Anthony Gutierrez, Jesus Adame, and Angel Estrello were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. The evidence at trial showed that in the early morning hours of September 20th, 2014, 17-year-old defendant, along with his accomplices AE, JA, and RA, entered defendant's house, attacked his parents, and robbed them. His father Sergio died after he was put in a chokehold and stabbed. Defendant and JA were arrested around 24 hours later. After his arrest, defendant was interviewed by detectives Duval and Salerno. He described at length his strained relationship with his father, his involvement in his parents' robbery, and his father's death. His account was largely consistent with the prosecution's other evidence. This video recorded interview was played for the jury. Detective Duval said, "Before we talk to you though, you know I have to advise you of your rights. Do you understand that?" Duval asked if he watched TV, and defendant said hardly. Duval asked if he ever watched cop shows and they say, "You got the right to remain silent" and stuff like that. Defendant said yeah. Duval read him his rights, and defendant indicated he understood each of them. Defendant described his negative relationship with his father, saying his father was just something bad and they had lost trust with one another. They went from a little problem, then it went to a big problem. He described having physical altercations with his father calling him lazy, and the two arguing non-stop. His father also did not like JA and believed he was a bad influence. When JA came over, his father would get more aggressive with defendant and threaten him. In mid-2014, the victim removed defendant's bedroom door, at which point defendant completely stopped loving his dad. Defendant described the physical altercation during which his father was pushing him really bad, but defendant held back from hitting him. At that point, he had threatened his father in response to his father threatening him. Defendant admitted he had been thinking, "I don't want to do anything stupid to my parents. Like, I just kept thinking, should I not? Cause at some point, I felt like I can't hold it in no more, that my dad is just too much to me." He began planning the home invasion robbery a couple of days before it occurred, although he also said he had been talking about it a week prior. He discussed it first with JA and then with AE. They knew there was going to be consequences if they got caught. The purpose was not to kill the victim, but to get payback and beat him up and just tell him like, "This is for you telling me all this and threatening me that you're going to kick my ass" and stuff like that. "I prove to you that I have the balls more than you." But it all went wrong though. The plan was also to steal credit cards and stuff like that, to buy clothes, food, and shelter. Defendant feared he would be homeless after the attack. On the day before the robbery, Friday, September 19, 2014, defendant got out of school and went with JA and AE and two other friends to meet his girlfriend. AE volunteered to take down the victim. Defendant knew if he did not incapacitate his mother, she would call the police. So they planned to spray a cloth with cologne and put it over her face, believing that would render her unconscious. JA agreed to do it. Defendant, JA, and AE went to defendant's house around 9 p.m. Defendant told his friends to wait somewhere in the neighborhood until his parents went to sleep, and he would let them in the house so they could ambush his parents. At around 12:30 a.m., when his parents were asleep, defendant let his friends in the house. Defendant gave AE a knife from the kitchen, but told him to use it only to defend himself or to threaten the victim. Defendant then created a ruse to get his mother to come into his bedroom where JA was waiting. Defendant attacked her and held her down as she screamed for the victim to help. JA put a cologne-soaked rag over her mouth to knock her out. As he held her, defendant told her it was payback for what my dad did, payback for taking his side and defending him. The victim turned on some lights and locked the front door. Defendant told AE to take him down, and AE attacked from behind with a knife. They fought, and AE dropped the knife, which defendant picked up. The victim grabbed the knife by the blade and fell with AE on the floor. As the victim got up, he impaled himself with the knife defendant was holding. Defendant feared his father would rush him, so he stabbed him multiple times. AE put the victim in a headlock, and he cried out for help, saying AE was killing him. Defendant went and asked his mother for the PIN code for her credit card, which she told him. AE released the victim from the headlock and told defendant he still had a pulse. JA put a blanket over defendant's mother. Defendant took 2 credit cards, a small amount of cash, and a cell phone from his mother's purse, as well as some cash from a safe. Defendant took the victim's car key and fled with the others in the car. They abandoned the car and went to AE's residence. Later in the day, defendant, J.A., and another friend went to a mall where defendant and J.A. purchased items of clothing using defendant's mother's credit card. Defendant learned he was on the news and wanted by police. He and J.A. went to downtown LA, withdrew $200 from an ATM machine, and tried to secure a hotel room. They ended up in Montebello where they were arrested. Toward the end of the interview, defendant asked questions about how he would be treated as a minor. Detective Salerno told him he was going to jail and could be charged with murder because the victim died. Defendant was surprised about his father's death. He had been told his father was pronounced dead, but he didn't believe it. Defendant was 17 years and 3 months old at the time of the interview, close to the age of majority. There was no evidence he suffered from any mental defect, and he expressed no confusion or hesitation when he was read his rights, acknowledging he understood each of them. When asked if he was nervous, he responded, "A little, not that much." The trial court noted the video recording of the interview did not reflect any sort of coercive environment. Defendant and one accomplice, A.E., were jointly tried as adults. Following the trial, they were convicted of first-degree murder and 2 counts of home invasion robbery. The jury found true the special circumstance allegation that the murder was committed during the course of a robbery. They were sentenced to 25 years to life. They later appealed, and their case was remanded to juvenile court. Jesus Adame was tried separately. He pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. He later appealed, and his murder conviction was reversed. A 4th accomplice, R.A., was committed to the California Youth Authority in 2015. Sergio Gutierrez was 50 years old at the time of death.